And I'm pretty sure if a European saw this, they'd be like, hey everyone, it's Cecily and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I am an American who has been living abroad for about 6 years, a little over 6 years. I truly enjoy documenting my experiences abroad, and that's exactly why I started this channel. If you are new here and you do want to join my journey, please do not forget to click that subscribe button down below. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the 3 biggest differences between the USA and the European Union. So let's just get right on into it. Of course, there are exceptions to everything I'm going to be saying in this video, but I'm directly speaking about my personal experiences. I moved to Europe when I was 15 years old. I have a video on why I moved there and how I ended up moving there. I will leave the link for that video down below. Alright, number 1 for the biggest difference that I've noticed between the US and the EU is the pace of life. And that also goes along the same lines as the quality of life. In my personal experiences, I do feel that in Europe, there is a much slower pace of life. People are not so rushed to get things done. They kind of embrace the organic pace that life sometimes takes. This can be seen through their vacation time. When I was living in France, I had vacation about every 6 weeks for a total of 2 weeks, which absolutely blew my mind. I couldn't believe how much time I actually had off to do what I wish. Since they get so many pauses and breaks throughout the year, you can absolutely tell that people don't feel as overworked and drained and mentally exhausted from their jobs. So not only do they have loads of vacation time, of course depends on every country, on top of that, they also really embrace the fact that we're allowed to take pauses throughout the workday. So for example, when we go on our lunch break, I do realize a lot of the times in the US, people don't even get to step away from their desk and take a proper work break. And the typical visual that I get in my head when I think about an American going on a lunch break is them running through the streets with like their sandwich in their hand, and they don't even have enough time to get off their phone, and they're still talking to a client. It's just not really a pause at all. In Europe, I would see people taking lunch breaks for about an hour, even up to 2 hours. If you look at Spain as a country, they have a whole hour or so dedicated to a time called siesta, and siesta means nap in English. All of the shops and businesses basically close during this time period in the middle of the day to either have lunch or to take a nap or to rest, basically just recharge the batteries, and then they come back, reopen everything, and they're ready to finish the second half of the day. I really grew up with the idea that if you don't work hard, you're never gonna achieve what you want to accomplish in life. But living in Europe, I finally gotten to understand that you can still work hard and take care of yourself at the same time. It truly is all about balance. And I feel like I owe a big thank you to the European, or more specifically French culture, for teaching me this. In Paris, I will literally see people go to coffee shops for 2 hours straight with friends and just sitting and chatting. There is no rushing. I know in the US, when you go have any kind of dining experience, you go to a restaurant, you go to a coffee shop, anywhere that you get any kind of food service, the waiter is always trying to come check on you every 2 seconds. They will come give you the check as soon as they see empty plates. After living in Europe for 6 years, I kind of feel like this is not rude, but it's kind of like rushing you out of the restaurant. And it's also this idea of customer service, that we're always efficient, we're always there. And of course for the waiters, it's very important that they are on their toes with this because they get tips. Tips do not even exist in France, which also completely blew my mind when I moved there. I'm not saying that there is a right way or a wrong way to live their life. This is completely based on how the US was built and how France and the EU was built, and just how people have their minds conditioned by being raised in 2 completely different cultures and countries, of course. Alright, moving on to the second biggest difference between the US and Europe, which is travel. Travel is so different between these 2 regions of the world. In Europe, I am easily able to travel without having to save up a lot of money, just because there's so much more affordable train tickets, affordable plane tickets. And why is this? Because the EU is a lot more compact. We're able to go smaller distances and reach different countries and regions quicker. It's just an amazing feeling when you can jump on a train and then like in 2 hours people are speaking different languages, you're surrounded by different architecture, you're in a completely different world. And it is probably one of my favorite things about Europe, how feasible travel actually is. Now, if we're traveling in the US, of course, we still have plane tickets. Trains aren't really a big thing here. And I really hope in the future that a train system that works all across the country would be a feasible idea for the US government to consider. But it unfortunately isn't at the moment, and I think that makes travel around the country a lot harder. Plane tickets aren't always the most affordable, and of course if we end up taking a car, it will take days to even reach halfway through the country. In the US, everything is just so spread out. If I want to go, let's say, to New York from Florida, which is where I was raised and born, that would easily maybe cost me like $100, and then don't even get me started on hotel prices. Hostels are not as common in the US as they are in Europe, unfortunately. When I do trips in the EU, I usually always stay in a hostel just because I love the experience. I'm still young, and that's the kind of crowd that ends up staying in those places anyway. In the past, I've made a video about my stay in a hostel. I think I was in Stockholm. Anyways, I will leave that video in the description down below if you want to see what a hostel is kind of like if you've never experienced it. All right, the third and last thing is the appreciation for artisanal things and artisanal practices. If you don't know what I mean by this, I'll try to explain it as best as I can. So in France, it is very easy to find things such as cheese shops or meat shops. There's even shoe repair shops, like a shop solely for repairing shoes. They also have separate little pharmacies with only medication. If you go to the US and you walk into a pharmacy, you have your medication aisle right next to the chips aisle and the candy aisle. I'm pretty sure if a European saw this, they'd be like, why are you allowed to buy Hershey's Kisses right next to my butt ointment? Like, why are those two things next to each other on a shelf? I think America's idea with this is efficiency at its peak. You don't really have to go anywhere else when you're out shopping for your goods. You can get everything in one store. If I walk into Walmart in the US, I can pick up my pharmacy prescription. I can change the tires on my car. I can buy a new bicycle. I can get a pet fish. I can pick up a loaf of bread. I can buy new shoes, a new dress, and I can also buy a new tennis racket and a bunch of sporting goods and a brand new flat screen TV. All of that in one store. Don't get me wrong, there's also a lot of stores in the EU that provide this kind of convenience, if you want to call it that, but they're just not as common. I really feel like the US is built around this idea that everything has to be as efficient as possible. And for Europeans, and personally I've experienced that, when everything is in one store, it's super convenient. It's great, honestly, if you're just trying to go to one store. But it tends to be of higher quality when you go to like one store that is specifically made for one sole thing. So that's what I found to be true in Europe. You go to the store, the fromagerie, which is a cheese shop. All of these products are artisanally sourced. So they're coming from a company that is solely working on creating and making cheese. Sometimes they can be locally sourced, they can come from farms, super fresh, super high quality. When I go to Walmart and buy my cheese, it's usually from a really big manufacturing company, a huge factory that has no intentions on creating high quality products. They really just want to get it out there. A lot of people have made this joke that when I come back to the US from the EU, every time I'm really picky with what I eat now because I've had good stuff. So now that I've had good stuff, why would I go back and be like, I don't know, eating stuff that doesn't taste so good to me anymore? And yes, I've been talking about food a lot in regards to this difference between the EU and the US, but this also applies to, like I said, the shoe repair shop. They have les ateliers, the workshops. I feel like art is appreciated on a whole other level in Europe as well, just because they probably have a lot more history in regards to art. So that probably has a lot to do with it. I think that wraps up the 3 biggest differences between the USA and the EU. I have so many more on my list that I would love to share with you guys. If you guys want to see another video just like this one, where I can continue sharing the differences that I found between the 2 different regions of the world, please let me know by giving this video a big thumbs up, and maybe leave a comment on what you guys think is some of the biggest differences between the US and Europe. I would love to say thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye guys! Mwah.